Hello everyone and welcome to another casual review. Today I'm talking about Fallout 4. This series recently got a TV show and the game itself got I wouldn't call it a remaster, but it got a facelift. And so I figured it was a great time to jump back into the game, and maybe this time around I'll actually complete it. Because when this game did first come out, I did play through it and I just kind of lost interest. I moved on to something else. I own this game on PC. Specifically, I have the Steam version of this game, and so I played this game both on my PC and the Steamdeck. Originally, when this game first came out, it ran decently on my PC. However, after its whole remaster facelift, my computer really struggles to run it, and I have to turn all my settings down to low, especially when I am actually recording footage for this game. And so I know that this game can look a lot better than it actually did for my playthrough. It ran surprisingly good on the Steam Deck. Not the best settings, and my Steam Deck would run pretty hot, so it lasted for about 2 or 3 hours on that, but it was playable on there. In case you've never played a Fallout game, specifically Fallout 3, New Vegas, or Fallout 4. Fallout is a first-person shooter, but you can toggle it to a third-person shooter, and it plays a lot like a traditional RPG in the fact that you have stats and perks, and there are skill checks, and there's a lot of dialogue choices that you can make. So it's pretty unique in that aspect because a lot of games that are like traditional RPGs are more of the high fantasy, whereas Fallout obviously takes place in a post-apocalyptic world. The premise is before there was nuclear fallout, in America, they built a bunch of these underground vaults in preparation for this nuclear fallout to have its citizens stay in the vaults. What they don't tell you up front is each one of these vaults, or at least most of them, have some kind of experiment that's going on. And so the main character in this game goes to a vault, and the vault is experimenting the effects of cryogenic sleep. And so you and your spouse and your baby get frozen in these cryogenic chambers, and then there's a huge time skip ahead. It doesn't tell you up front exactly like how far in the time we went, but you, your spouse, and your child get defrosted. You are still locked in your cryogenic chamber, and your spouse gets shot and your child gets stolen, and then you get frozen again. And then eventually you do get unfrozen to the year 2077, where a ton of time has passed since the big war. And so now you have to tread through this post-apocalyptic world. Fallout 4 takes place in this land called Commonwealth, and you are trying to track down your child, Sean. So that's your main objective. Like any of these big open world RPGs, you are going to get sidetracked quite a lot. Specifically, you're going to run into a couple different factions that have their own goals. First and foremost, you're going to run into the Minutemen, and the Minutemen's objective is to just be uniting all of the people in Commonwealth and just being there to help out with any dangers like raiders or mutants and that kind of thing. You're just trying to help out people for the common good, and you kind of become the leader of these Minutemen. You'll also run into other organizations like the Railroad and the Brotherhood of Steel, and so you're fulfilling these tasks for them as well as you are navigating through this giant land of Commonwealth, while you are trying to hunt down the people who killed your spouse and abducted Sean. Combat can kind of work one of two ways, like depending on how you prefer to play. You can play it like a traditional first-person or third-person shooter, or you can utilize a system called VATS, and VATS basically pauses the gameplay, and you can target like what limb or body part you want to shoot at. Each different part of the body has different percentage of you actually hitting that target, and depending on where you allocate your stats and your perks, depends on like how successful you are in hitting people in VATS. But if you're not very good at aiming in a first or third person shooter, VATS is also a unique option for this game. Ammo is not as plentiful as I would have liked, but I kind of, it fits the game because it's not like ammo is just going to be lying all over the place for you to use in this post-apocalyptic world. And so I never really dedicated myself to using one specific weapon, although you totally could, and you'd probably get good benefits in doing so, depending on how you allocate your level up, your skill points. But I typically just use any strong weapon that I could find that I have a ton of ammo for. This has its perks where I never run out of ammo, but it also has some negative effects, mostly being your inventory space is severely limited. And here I just want to say that I did not play with any mods. Mods are things that the community has created in order to alter the gameplay. I just played the vanilla version of this game, and in the vanilla version of this game, they don't give you a lot of inventory to carry these items. And the limited inventory is probably one of the most frustrating things about playing this game, at least for me, because one of the funnest things about this game, for me at least, is exploring all these abandoned buildings and subways and everything, and scrounging around for items that I can use for crafting and upgrading my weapons and finding better gear and all of that stuff. And each one of these things takes up a certain amount of weight. So it is more realistic in that way, but it also makes it so you're constantly managing your inventory because you can only hold like so many weapons, so much gear, so many different crafting materials before you have to manage that. Now, there are ways that you can maximize your inventory. When you allocate points in your strength, that will also increase your inventory space. And then there's certain perks that you can do to also increase your inventory space. You can also take a companion with you, and you can give them items to hold too. It does make things a little clunky in terms of trying to navigate all your inventory and trying to keep track of which of your companions have what and what containers you put certain items in. And so it's just kind of clunky and tedious, and I want to try out all these different weapons, but at the same time, I feel like I can only carry 2 or 3 with me at most before my inventory space fills up too much. The idea of companions is pretty cool. As you go along your adventure, maybe you encounter some characters that you really like, they can tag along with you, and then you just send your current companion that you're replacing off to go somewhere else. At the very beginning of this game, and he's on all the promotional art and everything like that, you meet a German Shepherd who you call dog meat. And so I never really had a human companion. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to have the dog companion in this game. And so luckily, dog meat can still carry stuff in his inventory, but he was the only partner that I stuck with the entire time. That's not to say that there's other potential companions that I wouldn't want to bring with me, but no person or synth can replace a loyal German Shepherd dog. One of the cons about always having a dog companion is if your dog does get hurt, meaning that it can't participate in combat anymore, it makes this really sad whimpering noise and starts crawling around on the floor like it's injured. And obviously your companions heal themselves automatically. And if you really wanted to, you can give your companions a stim pack. These are kind of like healing items in order to get them back into the fray. Your whole menu system is going to be done on this handheld computerized system that hangs out on your arm. This is called a Pip-Boy, and navigating the Pip-Boy took some getting used to, specifically just kind of like of the monochrome color scheme, and I felt like it made it so the map wasn't too detailed. This wasn't so much a problem later on in the game once I got used to it, but just navigating through the menus and the map isn't exactly the most detailed information. I do like that you can fast travel using this Pip-Boy to any location that you've already visited. Super nice getting around because Commonwealth is a pretty big area. One annoying thing is you can't fast travel when you're indoors, and so if after you've spent this whole time exploring this big abandoned subway or something like that, you're going to need to backtrack all the way through the area that you had just fought through in order to go outside, so then you can fast travel out of there. Sometimes sometimes if you explore like a building or something like that, it does have this convenient locked door that will take you back to the entrance of this area, but not always. This game really incentivizes building civilizations as part of your Minutemen duties to build civilizations for people to come and live in. And it's got a lot of micromanaging here. The people that are living in your civilization need certain things like clean water, access to food, power, defense against raiders, all of that kind of thing. And the system is pretty in-depth, like making your civilization exactly how you want it. And if you're all about that kind of gameplay, I think you're gonna have a lot of fun here because there's a lot of creative freedom in terms of where you place all your turrets and buildings and workshops and everything like that. And you have a lot of opportunities to customize a lot of these civilizations, assuming you have the resources to do so. By the end of the game, I only really maintained 2 of my main settlements. One was like the first area that you start out in and you get introduced to the Minutemen and they kind of introduce you to the whole workshop kind of thing. And the second area that I built up was this castle, like this abandoned castle that the Minutemen inhabited. And both of those are pretty mandatory in terms of like progressing through the quests. I never really played around with this too much for fun, and I didn't see many repercussions for not maintaining my settlements. Oftentimes it'll like give you these red numbers saying like, oh, the people want more food or more energy, more water, and I just don't have the resources to build those things for them. But I never saw any repercussions for not meeting those needs. So maybe it's more of like a reward system where if you have a healthy settlement, then you get certain bonuses. For that, I am not sure. For a game like this, you really want to get in the habit of quick saving, specifically the way that I built my character. Now you can put points in your endurance that makes it so you can survive hits a little bit better, but oftentimes, especially during the first half of the game, it was very easy for me to get insta blown up, whether it is a suicidal kamikaze super mutant that would blow me up with a grenade, or somebody launches a missile at me. It's very easy for you to go from full health to 0 in just 1 second. And so you're going to want to get in the habit of quick saving quite often. It doesn't take too long. You just pause and then quick save. But I learned this lesson the hard way because so many times I would just insta die and then I'd go back way far. And there are ways that you can increase the amount that the game tends to auto-save, but there's been lots of times when I've lost a ton of progress just because I forgot to save before an encounter. You want to be careful with this though, because there were some times that I quick saved right before I got blown up, and then you get stuck in this loop where the game will load, you'll get blown up, and then it'll load and you get blown up, and so you have to be like super quick on your feet to run away before you get blown up again, because you can get stuck in these insta-death loops. Also, if you want to save certain resources like bobby pins, it's a good idea to quick save as well. Bobby pins are used to pick locks, and then you can also hack computers in order to access areas. And these are one of the first perks that I put points into because I hate getting locked out of certain areas and thinking how I missed out on resources. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm quite the pack rat when it comes to games like this. And so nothing more frustrating than approaching a door or a computer that you can't access and unlock because your skill points aren't high enough. It just drives me crazy, like, oh, what am I missing behind that supply closet? And usually it's just like some stim packs and some additional ammo, but still, that's like stuff that I'm missing out on unless I unlock those doors. There are other ways to increase certain perks for your character and upgrade them. Scattered throughout the wasteland, you're going to find things like magazines and bobbleheads, and as you pick these up, they give you additional benefits, like make it harder for enemies to detect you when you're sneaking, or make it easier to pick locks, things like that. The frustrating thing about leveling up and allocating your points and perks is, in the vanilla version of this game, there really is no way to respec. So maybe you're going into this game without a game plan, or you haven't played a previous Bethesda game like this before, and so you don't really know what you're doing. It's very easy to make a mistake and put points in the wrong thing that you decide later that you don't want, and traditionally RPG games are going to give you some kind of way to respec how you leveled up. I mean, even Elden Ring had this feature, and it was just kind of weird that that feature was omitted in a game like this, where how you customize your character and build your character, place such a critical role in the actual gameplay, because you can play a lot of different ways if you want. One of the ways that I really specialize my character is I wanted him to be super charismatic, and so I put a lot of points in charisma. The benefit of this is that you can access certain dialogue options that you otherwise couldn't. You can convince characters to do certain things like help you out or give you additional money for doing certain quests for them. Again, it's just like one of those things that would bug me otherwise, getting locked out of those certain choices, and I hate getting locked out of choices. So I didn't put a lot of points in terms of like actual combat, and by the end of the game, I did start feeling the effects of this, where some of the high level enemies would take a long time to finally take down because I suppose my offense was so low. But there is a huge variety in terms of like weapons and how you navigate combat. And really there's just like a lot of options in terms of where you go and what you do. It is kind of one of those games that once you get through the introductory main story, it just kind of opens up and it says, have at it. And I found that more often than not, it was better just to specifically focus on side quests, because side quests will often point you in the right direction for certain areas that you can explore in terms of like caves and buildings and subways. It would be very easy to just go and explore these areas on your own without a quest directing you to do it, and then maybe you'll get a quest later on down the line and it's like, I've already explored that area, but if it's an item that you have to grab, you have to like go back to that area that you already cleared out in order to get that item. And so I just found it was more convenient to specifically focus on side quests than just wander around aimlessly just trying to find what I can find. Once I did roll the credits on this game, I'm sure there was still a ton of stuff that I hadn't experienced yet. This is kind of one of those deserted island games that could potentially entertain you for hundreds of hours because there's just so much to explore and do. It can feel a little overwhelming sometimes because you just feel like you can't experience all of it. I did reach a certain point around the 20-hour mark where I started getting ready to wrap up my adventure and just focus on the main quest. And I really do like the main story in this game. I'm not going to give away any spoilers here, but the story does take some interesting twists and turns, and you do have to make some difficult choices. Sometimes, a lot of times in games like this where you can kind of choose your adventure, they do like to put you between a rock and a hard place, and you have to choose the lesser of two evils. Same with the factions. There's a ton of different factions in this land of Commonwealth, and you have to kind of decide who you're going to help out and who you're going to go against. And I do like that because it gives you a little more accountability on how your character reacts to the story that's happening around them. I mean, it's not the smoothest of games. Like I mentioned, Pip-Boy can be a little clunky to navigate, and your inventory management, I mean, your companion is always getting in your way. That being said, dogs standing in doorways so you can't pass is probably one of the most realistic things about this game. I could also see it being a little difficult wrapping your head around if you've never played a Bethesda game like this before. Specifically like Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim, Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas. Like, if you haven't played any of these games, there might be a little bit of a learning curve where they don't exactly explain everything in a way that you could understand, that they don't exactly lay out everything in terms of understandability. They kind of assume that you have already played a Bethesda game and you kind of know how to navigate a game like this. Not saying it's like super obtuse, but there are some things that they're kind of taking for granted you already know. I just wish that I was able to play this game on a higher fidelity console or PC, because I would love to see this game on its highest settings. I'm sure it looks really good after this update, but it still looked just fine on my PC and my Steam Deck. Overall, I think I'm going to give this game a 4 out of 5. I think it's a really unique game, and I remember when it first came out, it came out with mixed reception, and I'm not really sure what things they have changed or updated in the most recent patch. But it really is just like a really unique and fun, interesting world to be in and play in. Well guys, that's it for me. Let me know if you have any questions or comments about Fallout 4, and I'd love to hear what you have to say. Otherwise, I'll talk to you later. Bye!
You're mine now!